to Chicago where the MCs play, and we wreck down microphones every day. Big beats hit the street, see gangsters roaming, and parties don't stop till 8 in the morning. On top of Sears Tower overlooking the sky. Oh my, it's alumni from Bolingbrook High.
Welcome back to Chicago Loop. I'm your host, Marc Lovell. Hope everybody had a good week. My week was pretty good, pretty productive, but I woke up this morning to some disturbing news. I don't know if I went to bed too early last night, I didn't see it, but I definitely saw it this morning. And what I'm referring to is the murder of Walter Scott by a South Carolina police officer. Now, if you haven't seen the video, it's all over the internet. Make sure you go check it out and you can make your own decision, but you cannot deny a fact. And the fact is that that man, Walter Scott, was gunned down by a police officer while he was running away. He was shot 8 times in the back. Now, if you watch the video, you can see there was an initial scuffle of some sort, but it was very brief, and he was running away. Now, I know that police officers are human and they make bad decisions just like everyone else. However, to shoot somebody who's running away from you, who's posing no threat 8 times in the back, and he shot to kill. He didn't shoot to stop him. He shot to kill. And again, in the video, you can see all of this. And as the police is walking over to Walter Scott's body laying in the grass, face down, he's yelling, "Put your hands behind your back, put your hands behind your back." And then you can see in the video where the officer drops something next to Walter Scott's body. Now, the reports say that Walter Scott was allegedly stopped because he had a broken tail light. There was no car in the video, so I'm not sure how that worked out. And in the video, maybe the person with the camera got there a little bit late and just got the altercation, but I saw no car in the video. Also, the story says that the officer claims that Mr. Scott was trying to disarm him of his taser. I didn't see any taser out. There was maybe something that was going on that we didn't get to see, but it definitely did not warrant the man to be shot in the back as he was running away 8 times. And the officer was so calm when he did it, it was like he was having target practice. It's very disturbing video, so proceed with caution if you do decide to watch it, but please, by all means, go out and watch it. Now, again, Walter Scott is just another victim in a long line of consistent police misconduct and them taking what they're supposed to be upholding, which is the law, into their own hands and becoming judge, jury, and executioner. Now, in addition to Walter Scott, we're all familiar and know very well that for some reason the consensus seems to be that a black life is more recoupable or has less value than any other life. And if you can do your research, as I have, you'll see that none of these police shootings where they're shooting people who are unarmed are happening in affluent neighborhoods. This is all happening in urban communities or poor communities. I'm not saying that it only happens to black people, but it happens more times than not to young black men or black men in general. Now, another person, Justice Howell, 17 years old, was gunned down by a police officer. He was also unarmed, was not resisting arrest, according to eyewitness testimony. And in this country, in the judicial system, it seems to be that if an eyewitness is helping the prosecution, their word is golden. But when they're helping the defense or helping the defense of someone's name who's been wrongly murdered, it seems like it means nothing. Even video means nothing. And it's just becoming habit for police officers to either get a slap on the wrist, maybe get fired, maybe suspended with pay, and no jail time. This is ridiculous. I mean, it's constantly happening. So in addition to Walter Scott and Justice Howell being murdered by police officers, we have another 100 people or so that have been killed by police officers. Another young man is that we're all familiar with is the Trayvon Martin case a couple of years back out in Florida, where he was killed. He was stalked by George Zimmerman, who isn't even a police officer. He's a wannabe police officer. He stalked that boy while he was coming from the store, and he murdered him. He didn't go to jail. It went to trial, but it was bullshit. And he got off scot-free. He's been getting in trouble ever since. I mean, he said things that were so distasteful, I care not to even repeat them. But do your research. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research and find out what's really going on in America. Because I know I have a child, a young black man, 15 years old, and I definitely don't want that to happen. And we have to start policing the police as a community. These cameras, and you have one person with footage, or one story comes out and you have conflicting witness testimony. If everybody starts to police the police themselves, maybe we can make a change. We can't do it as individuals. I mean, I'm not delusional about that, but we definitely can do it as a cohesive and as a unit and as United States citizens. Now, another kid that was gunned down was Dante Hamilton. He was killed in Red Arrow Park in Milwaukee. Again, unarmed, allegedly not resisting arrest, not posing an immediate threat to the officer, yet he was killed, slap on the wrist, and nothing's going on with it. Just another family that has to bury a loved one that was murdered. I thought we prosecuted murderers in this country. Apparently not when they wear a blue uniform and a badge. Now, everybody's familiar with the Mike Brown case in Missouri, Ferguson, Missouri. Again, clearly, Mike Brown was not posing an immediate threat when he was shot. The evidence and ballistics show that the officer was standing over him when he shot him. This is ridiculous, and we always seem as a community get into an uproar and want to march and sing and do that, but it's time to do something else, man. I study the Black Panther Party and Malcolm X and even Martin Luther King, but you saw what happened to him trying to turn the other cheek. I'm not saying that it's right, but something definitely has to be done. Now, moving forward with another black male who was killed is Anthony Hill. He was killed in DeKalb County, Georgia, 27 years old, killed by Officer Robert Olson. Eyewitnesses, again, was not resisting arrest. And it seems like when the news people come and people are talking and they talk with intelligence and they're articulate, that seems not to get put on camera. It's only when you're crying and you're screaming and you're irate and you're angry or you're ignorant as fuck that seems to make it to the news to portray that community in a bad light. We have to start taking care of our children, our men, our black men, our fathers, because I recall in the movie Boys in the Hood a scene that that always stuck with me that Lawrence Fishburne said, and he said that the best way, they were talking about gentrification. He said the best way to destroy your people is to take away their ability to reproduce. And that's a fact undeniably, because if you got black men being killed, black men in prison for numbers of years for nonviolent crimes and things like that, and the other few that are left are sleeping with the same sex, how can we reproduce? So we're going to be extinct. As black men, we're on the verge of being exterminated. It's going to be, in the archives and in books and in cages where they say, well, this is what a black man is or was. Now, another guy who was killed was Nashelis Vincent. Hope I pronounced the name right. He was killed. He's 37 years old, was killed by Officer Paul Jaroth in Aurora, Colorado. Again, unarmed, not resisting arrest, not posing an immediate threat, gunned down, nothing happened to the police officer. Do your research. I'm not making these names up. This is documented facts on cases and situations that have happened, and they keep happening over and over and over again. We have to do something about this as a people, not just black people, not just white people, not just Asian people, all people, because all this stuff happens in poor or urban communities. It does not happen in Beverly Hills, in the rich neighborhoods, in the affluent neighborhoods. It doesn't happen. So we have to start paying attention and not just worrying about pseudo-celebrity lives and what they're doing and who they're sleeping with and what kind of car they're driving and what kind of house they live in. We need to worry about us first and foremost. Now, another young man who was gunned down in Ohio, age of 29, is Terrence Moxley. Handcuffed at the time, was handcuffed with minimal effort by the policeman, yet when they get him outside and they're taking him to the car, they taser the man to death and kill him. Now, if you're going to resist arrest, when you resist arrest before they're taking you into custody, before they're putting the handcuffs on you, why would you resist arrest after the fact? When you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything. But again, murdered by police officers who were sworn to uphold the law, but what they do is they become judge, jury, executioner, and make up their own laws. We need to do something about that. In the words of, I hate to say it, but he was a gang leader in Chicago, there will be no more killing without killing. There will be no more killing without killing. This has to stop. And talking and singing and protesting and marching does not work. Because half the time when there's an uprising in the community, like in Ferguson, I did some research and a lot of the shooting and the looting was going on and perpetrated by police officers to make that community look like they're out of control and like they're animals. They perpetuated. They did the same thing with the Bloods and the Crips in LA when they had the truce after the Rodney King thing. Police officers would take a gang member into custody, take his car, go shoot on an enemy block so they can identify the car to unsettle the peace. It happens over and over and over again, and we as a people are more concerned with the Kardashians and the Braxtons and, you know, all these people live vicariously through someone else's life when there's stuff and issues that need to be addressed in your own life. So let's stop focusing on somebody else's life and let's focus on the lives that are being taken away on a whim and no punishments being handed down. Definitely not the punishment that should be. Now, moving forward, there's another guy who was killed, 43 years old, Charlie Kendall, killed by two LA police officers. And we know the history with them, so it shouldn't come as a shock to anybody. I'm just stating the facts and reading off names of these men who were being murdered by police officers. Being murdered by police officers. Unwarranted, just because they know nothing's going to happen. I mean, I'm starting to think that this is okay. I think they're being briefed on this. I think it's population control myself. We need to wake up, do some research, and have a balance of knowledge. If you know everything about some rapper or some actor or whatever, you should know just as much about the people making policy in your communities, in your cities, in your towns. We need to do that. Moving forward, we have Romaine Brisbane, 34, shot by officers in Arizona, again, unarmed, not posing a threat, no weapon found, yet he was murdered. And the police officer said he saw him reaching into his waistband. His hand was on something. They were scuffling, and he was trying to get away. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, he shouldn't have been running from the police. If you see a dog come out that's about to bite you in the ass, you're going to run, right? Same thing. We don't feel that the police are here to protect us. And I'm not talking about me, myself in particular. I'm talking about men. We don't always feel that the police is there to help us out or to protect us or they're just doing their job. We feel threatened. The police get behind me. I'm not pulling over on a dark street or a dark road. I'm going to go to where it's well lit. Not that that's going to stop them from doing whatever they want to do, but at least hopefully somebody will capture it and something can be done about it because there's evidence. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. Now, again, we remember another case in Florida. 17-year-old Jordan Davis was killed by Michael Dunn because he was sitting in the backseat of a car and the music was playing too loud for Michael Dunn's taste. Luckily for us, he got life in prison. But it was on the tail end of the Trayvon Martin case, so he just had bad timing, in my opinion, because had it not been for that, he probably would have gotten off too, or gotten off with a slap on the wrist. Moving forward, everybody remembers Sean Bell, killed on the eve of his wedding, shot multiple times by 4 officers, some of which who reloaded and shot into that man's car and killed him. the evening before his wedding. Ridiculous, man. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on because it keeps happening. And if it keeps happening, somebody's okaying that. The police officers are not going to do that with, it's like they have carte blanche. Like they can do whatever they want to. They can do whatever they want to, have it any way they want to because nothing's being done. And somebody in power is okaying that. And it's filtering down to these officers. It's not just white officers who are killing black people or killing unarmed citizens, period. Let me rephrase. Killing unarmed citizens, period. It's not just white officers. It's officers, period. We have to do something about this, people. And I know I want to touch on something else that kind of goes along with it, is that this snitching thing. I want to make it very clear the definition and what a snitch is or what a snitch isn't. Now, if you're in a community, you live there, you know the kids in the neighborhood, the people in the neighborhood, the homeowners, the people who rent, whatever, and you see a crime happening and you give a statement to the police officers, or you identify someone who murdered a child you watched grow up or somebody who lives in that area, that's not snitching. You're a citizen, a law-abiding citizen, a stand-up person in your community, and you genuinely give a fuck about what goes on in your neighborhood. That is not snitching. Another case of someone who's considered a snitch that isn't is a person who is just nosy as fuck and needs to mind their damn business. If you don't know anything about the situation, the victim, the suspect, and you just want to volunteer to go and talk to the police and tell them shit just because you want to be nosy and you want to have something to say, and you're not even familiar with the details of the situation, you're just nosy as hell. You're still not a snitch. Now, a snitch is a person who, if I go with you to commit a crime and I get away and you get caught and you decide to tell the police, get the police my whole resume, my name, where I live, where my girl lives, where my grandmother lives, where my mom lives, what kind of car I drive, to make it easier on yourself, that is a snitch. That's a snitch. Another person who's mistakenly called a snitch is if I tell you, hey man, can you run me to the store? You're just taking your friend to the store. And I've already planned to go in there and rob and kill and do whatever, or shoot somebody or whatever the case may be. And you get caught or I get caught, and the person who had nothing to do with it and no knowledge of the crime that's about to be committed tries to get himself or herself out of trouble by saying, I just gave him a ride, I didn't know. That's not a snitch. A snitch is a person who's in concert with somebody when they're going to commit a crime, and they give details about the crime, how it was planned, how it was plotted, who the other perpetrators were, to get themselves out of trouble or to get a lesser sentence or to make it easier on themselves, or they just crack under pressure. That is a snitch. So let's be clear about that. So when something happens in your neighborhood and you don't gangbang and you don't sell drugs and you see a crime being committed to somebody that you know or in your community, in front of your house or whatever, and you decide that you want to speak up, by all means do that. That's about being a stand-up person in your community. That's not about being a damn snitch. And I get sick and tired of people throwing that term around lightly, because where I come from, you don't call nobody a snitch or a stool pigeon, because you can get somebody seriously killed behind that. So know your facts, know what that word means, and stop throwing it around so lightly. Now, I'm just in a messed up mood because of all the things that have been transpiring, but I want to give a special shout out to Evie Wells. Her play Forbidden Fruit is being shown in Aurora the 11th and the 12th. Go check that out. Anybody doing anything positive, anybody that wants to comment on this segment, again, subscribe to my YouTube channel, leave your comments there. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. It's either Marc Lovell or No Training Wheels. Excuse me. Leave your comments. I will address them in the next episode of Chicago Loop. Nothing's off limits. This is my show. I do it and say what I want to on here. So if you would like to remain anonymous, you can do that. If not, I will definitely acknowledge you and what you said. If you don't have anything intelligent to say, miss me with it. Thank you and good night.
8 in the morning, on top of Sears Tower overlooking the sky. Oh my, it's alumni from Bolingbrook High.